Okay, I think we should get going, and Michael can catch up when he gets here. Welcome to the three people in the audience that are here to our last Historic Resources Board meeting of 2019. Would you call the roll?
Yes. Chair Bauer.
Here.
Clearly. Where am I going? Vice Chair Corey.
Present.
Board Member Wimmer. Here. Board Member Kohler. Here. Board Member Shepard. Here. Board Member Bernstein.
Here. Good, thank you. So, yeah, well, I think we'll do that at the end.
No, I was wondering what.
Well, we can't, it's not on the agenda, so we have to do it in comments.
So it doesn't change to green?
Okay, so we have as our number one item, meetings and assignments. This, I think, is the last meeting of the year. And the schedule for 2020 meetings is here, but at this point, the composition of the board is not clear because three of us are up for reappointment or appointment. Three positions are open, and so we will not know until the 16th of December who the council selects. So there's no real discussion of that. So let's move on to item number 2, which is a public hearing of 840 Kipling Street. It's a request for HRB Historic Resources Board consideration of proposed additions and modifications to a residence previously determined by the HRB to be a contributing resource within the boundaries of the South of Forest, what's the A part of that? Area, SOFA. One coordinated area plan. The project request includes individual review and a variance for the construction of a second-story addition on a substandard lot. Environmental assessment is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act in accordance with the guidelines section 15301. Additions to existing structures. The zoning is R2, low-density residential. So, would you like member of staff to start off our presentation?
Actually, Chair Bauer.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll need to excuse myself from the dais on this project. Thank you.
Right. Will you be back to speak to the project?
Yes, I'll be.
Okay.
Yes, I'll be speaking to the project.
So,
Thank you.
Can't Martin go to the audience?
So yes, I think because Martin is a sole proprietor, is that we're kind of making that announcement to be clear about why you're getting up from there and walking over there for the viewing public is that you're, as a sole proprietor, you're allowed to speak to the board on this project, which is you're representing the client on.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
This is speaking as Amy French, Chief Planning Official. I have here with me Christy Fong, who is back. She had been previously employed with the City of Palo Alto. She's back helping us as a consultant and with this in other projects having historic significance. So I'll just turn it over to Christy.
Thank you for the introduction and good morning, board members. I'm the project planner for the proposed project at 840 Kipling Street in the R2 low density residential zoning district. Just to provide you with an overview on the project history and its historic status, the property was previously determined by the HRB as a contributing resource within the SOFA Cat 1 area in 1998. On February 14 of this year, the project was presented to the HRB in a study session to receive initial feedback on its consistency with the Secretary of Interior standard. Since the last meeting, the applicant has revised the project. Oh, I'm sorry. The current project includes first floor additions at the rear part of the building, a partial basement beneath the rear addition, and a second-story additions to an existing single-story home with a detached garage on a substandard lot. Along with the addition, modifications to existing windows and door will be made to all elevation throughout the building.
I'm sorry.
Okay. The proposed scope of work is summarized in the project description sections of the staff report in packet page 9 to 10. To allow the construction of a second-story addition on a substandard lot, the project will need to request for variance and individual review. The variance requests also include an approximate 6-foot extension to an existing non-compliant wall on the west elevation, which would extend 2.5 feet into the 6-foot required side yard setback. The applicant proposed 2 additional minor changes to the project since report submission. The first change can be noted on the front and left elevations, where there is a double entry door and a single French door under the front porch. Previous proposal is to maintain their location as they are, and the current proposal is to swap these 2 doors. The second change is on the left elevation, where there are 2 existing historic windows under the gable. Previous proposal is to retain the larger window and to remove the smaller window to accommodate a new stairway. Due to construction difficulty, the current proposal is to remove the larger window and to relocate the smaller window that will center under the gable. The city has engaged Page & Turnbull Inc. to conduct SOI analysis on the project. It is determined that the current project, with subsequent changes on November 20th, is consistent with all 10 SOI standards. The SOI analysis is included in the staff report and can be found in packet page 12 to 16. Since the advertisement of this hearing, staff has received 6 laborers' letter commenting on this project, 1 of which spoke against, and the remaining 5 spoke in favor of the project. A copy of these comment letters is made available for your consideration. To conclude staff presentation, staff would like the HRB to confirm the project consistency with the SOI standard. Your determination will inform the director consideration with the request individual review and variance applications for the second-story development on the substandard lot. Staff and the applicants are here today to answer any question you may have on the project.
Thank you. I need to say at the outset that friends of mine owned this property 25 years ago. They do not own it now, and I have no interest in the property, but I just feel it's important to let everyone know that I actually have been in the house, I'm familiar with it, although my memory isn't as good as it used to be. All right, so that said, would the applicant?
I have a quick question for a staff question. So in the report, it says that it's exempt from provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, right? However, but then Page & Turnbull deemed that it was non-compliant with the Secretary of Interior standards. Can you just talk about how those 2 things relate, if it's exempt on one side, but it needs to meet something on another side, just so we better understand that concept?
Sure. Exemption for single-family home additions is pretty common. When the revisions to a historic resource are deemed not consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, then technically we can kick it out of exemption. Because it becomes a CEQA impact. So that's why Page & Turnbull continued to review the project, and the project plans changed, and I believe that's what Christy had presented this morning, further revisions that Page & Turnbull, our historic qualified consultant, reviewed to make sure that the changes now do result in Secretary of Interior standards compliance. Therefore, it can continue to be an exempt from CEQA project.
Okay, so it's only exempt if it meets the Secretary of Interior standards.
That's correct.
Correct, in the case of a historic
Okay,
resource.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Maybe at this point, you could, go ahead, Brandon, I'll follow up.
Just one clarification for the neighbor that's against it. It's the only one here on the notes that doesn't have an address. Is the address of the opposing one 836? Is that, or is it somewhere else?
So the opposition is from 441 Channing
441 Channing.
Avenue.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's not new.
So while we're on this, while you have this slide up,
So it's that one.
can you explain what's going on to the left of 840 Kipling, there's looks like a single-story building there, and then 441 Channing. Is that all 441 Channing?
So 441 Channing include a two-story home and a single-story ADU, accessory dwelling unit. So the lower profile one is the ADU.
I see. So the garage,
There, so you can see it right here.
Sorry.
and so on this view, that large...
So the garage for the subject property will be here, and also the ADU on 441 Channing will be here.
And then the building to the left, we cannot see the complete footprint of 441 Channing is there.
Yeah, so this is the second, this is the two-story building, basically.
Okay, so one of the issues here is that the existing 840 Kipling cannot use the entire building envelope because of the redwood trees. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is a 35 feet tree protection zone from the diameter of the tree that need to exclude some of the buildable area of the lot. So that's the challenge that they have and the physical constraint they have on the site in order to make this project eligible to request for a variance.
Right, okay, so they don't, the owners don't have any opportunity to build, that's what the green arc is on this?
That's
Okay.
correct. The green dotted line outline the tree protection zone.
Okay, and this is a substandard lot, meaning that it's less than 5,000 square feet? Is that the metric, is that the volume that you have to achieve to be a standard lot?
That's correct.
Okay, and can you tell us offhand what the lot cover, I mean, what the square footage is?
So technically, a substandard lot there's a formula that is based on lot size and lot width, or depth even. So there's a certain percentage of the lot width that's substandard, and then the lot size. And I think that is in the staff report. Christie is checking
So
the
on
page.
packet page 12, on the footnote, the subject lot is considered a substandard lot width that is less than 50 feet and a lot area that is less than 4,980 square feet, which is 83% of the minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet and what is allowed on the R2 zoning district.
So it's 107 square feet smaller than a standard lot?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right, I think that, I have some more questions, but I think they're better answered by the applicant. So I think unless there are other questions of staff, let's hear from the applicant. Martin.
Thank you, Chair Bauer and Christie and Amy. Thank you, and board members. First of all, I'd just like to disclose that I received a written notification for the California Fair Political Practice Commission that as a sole proprietor, I'm allowed to present this project, represent the owners on this matter. So that's why that's why I'm able to present it today. Christie, thank you for the summary, and then there are some comments on the square footage of the property. I guess we can make some corrections of the square footages that are not making it standard lot size. So as Christie mentioned in her report, the main change from what we reviewed back in February was retaining the historic cross gable of the project. When we did that, then that required the proposed stairs to get to the proposed second floor to shift over. And then that became then the construction conflict with the existing window. And that's why we're requesting that the small window and the large windows be revised to go for the small window, put it where the big window is. And that's what Christie mentioned. And then the other thing is that, as Christie mentioned, is the proposal on the front porch to swap the historic doors across. And the reason for that simply is that as the floor plan changed for where the location was, it's put the front door where the front entry is, and that's why you see that presentation there. So we also, as Christy mentioned, we also did some rework of the design, like the cross gable retaining. And so as I've mentioned on several projects where the individual review process happens and then the historic review process happens, so we've taken great counsel from those consultants to create, we think, a better project. I'd also like to thank in particular Board Member Wimmer's suggestion that for the quality of life issues in the building that we consider adding dormers up on the second floor level, and then that's visible on the west elevation. So we incorporated that, and that also met all the requirements for the historic review. So as you've seen in Page and Turnbull's recent report, that all 10 of the conditions for secretarial standards, they're all been met. So we're pleased to have worked with the historic consultant and IR to coordinate all that so that all 10 can be met as in compliance. So those are the basic comments I'd like to make. And then, so again, the revisions would be the revision of the window and then the switching of the entry doors. So if you're able to find that those are also consistent with the secretarial standards, if that could be included in any motion that you propose. Again, you have letters in place where Page and Turnbull has endorsed the revisions of the swapping of the doors and that. So we're pleased to answer any questions you have. Okay. And then when appropriate, too, I'd also like to introduce Steve Reyna, property owner. He has some comments to make, too. So at your pleasure. Thank you.
I'd like to point out to the audience that we have at our places this morning email comments on this project that were not part of our packet. I don't know, what are they, six emails. 5 are in favor of the project. 1 is opposed to the variance for a second floor. And these are available, I guess, in the back or on the website, or will be. And having looked at these very quickly this morning, I wonder, Martin, if you could speak to the privacy issue that's raised by the one neighbor that does not support the project. And in particular, I think the trees that are screening or provide privacy between the houses are new trees. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, we worked closely with the individual review consultant, Marmarella, on the privacy issues. So that's why all the windows on the second floor facing 441 Channing, those windowsills are all at 5 feet high, and they're small, as you can see here. So that met the requirement for the privacy from the house point of view. Mr. Reyna would be able to speak for the landscape issues. So when the SOFA one project from after PAMP sold the property to Summerhill, there was a requirement to keep or maintain 40-foot trees on the dividing property line. There was decisions made that there was a maintenance issue with those trees, so replacement trees were proposed to be planted to go up to the certain height. And Mr. Reyna can explain why those trees haven't gone to that height. And then, but that would address, I think, your question.
Sure.
So, yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Reyna, yeah.
Go ahead. And then we'll have a question that board members can ask questions.
Good morning,
Morning.
board members. I have a residual cough from a cold, so if I pause, please forgive me.
Just say your name.
I'm Stephen Reyna. I'm one of the owner of 840 Kipling and the applicant here. With respect to the specific privacy questions, when we bought the house in 1998, at that point, the lot next to us was the PAMF staff parking lot, which was then subdivided as a part of the SOFA 1 program. And Summerhill proposed DHS housing, which is much denser than R2. It's like 0.65 FAR, where we're 0.45. There was a director's hearing with Ed Goff, who was then director of planning back in 2000, 2001. And in that director's hearing, when we were talking about compatibility and privacy, Ed Goff made the decision that the existing 4 pine trees, which were 40-foot plus at that point, would be preserved as a condition of the property, as a condition of approval. And, excuse me, when Sandra Gibbons or the owners of 441 Chan and current owners, they purchased the house in 2007, the trees were there. In 2009, because of maintenance issues, they came to us and requested if they could remove the trees and replace them. We had some maintenance issues as well. We agreed to this, but it was a screening tree for screening tree agreement on our part. That was 10 years ago. When the trees were moved, we actually suffered privacy issues because now their second-story windows were looking into our bedrooms and our bathroom and our living room. But, you know, we gave them time for the trees to come back, and the trees have actually never really grown. And 10 years later, we are still suffering privacy from them, actually. And I included this, one of the things that was put in front of you, actually very late, it was put in front of you this morning, it was our response to his letter. So we have a point-by-point history and context and response to all of the issues that he brought up. So, and I'll just mention that his privacy is also our privacy. We don't want to be in our house and feel intruded upon in our personal comfort. So we have really tried to make privacy with respect to our neighbors a very key point of the project. So as Martin pointed out, 5-foot windowsills, small windows, it's mostly for light. But we're open to, you know, hear other suggestions or additional suggestions if somebody thinks that there's still a privacy issue.
So what trees were planted? What's the species of the new tree?
I don't know the species.
Do you know how tall are they? Oh.
Tristan? My wife thinks it's Tristan.
And I see on the plan that the trees are noted at about 16 feet tall now. Okay. Just to give us some perspective, I'm guessing that this ceiling from our platform is about 20 feet. And so a 40-foot tree, I'm just guessing based on the height of the horizontal barrier.
I think the top of the window there might be 20 feet.
Well, so 40 feet is a very tall tree.
They were very tall.
Very tall trees. So you have owned your property before Summerhill built those houses,
That's
which
correct.
are much higher density than the rest of the Kipling, that portion of Kipling. When they built are the second floor windows of 441 obscure or high as the code now requires? Do you know?
Well, sorry.
So are those, when Summerhill built those houses, did they provide the kind of privacy by raising the windowsills or?
No. They're
putting-
regular windows, like 2.5 feet windowsill. The privacy was provided by the trees, not by any kind of window treatment.
Okay, so you were, as an established owner before the Summerhill project, the way in which you have the privacy maintained was the screen, which has now been removed
Yes.
and replaced, but the trees have not yet grown to the 40-foot height.
10 years later, they have not.
Will they, yeah, those trees, the pine trees that were there were planted, if I remember correctly, in the mid-'70s, I think. Because I remember when they were 6, 8 feet tall. And,
True. You knew the previous
because I
owners.
live not far from it. Anyway, okay, I'm just trying to put into the record some context about privacy, because the project has to meet the current standards, privacy standards for second floors, which is high windowsills or some kind of obscure glass. And obviously, Martin has done that as the architect. All right, so those are my questions. Anyone else have questions? Margaret?
I don't know if I have so much of a comment, a question, but I have a comment. Should I wait for my comment, or should I ask?
Maybe we can have discussion after we finish the question.
Okay.
Period. Brendan, anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it possible for me to kind of make my presentation, or
Of
some
course.
things that I would like to?
Sure. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I thought, go ahead.
Go, please.
Okay. So this, where do I start? We love our house. I mean, as I mentioned in the February study session, we hunted for over a year. We went through physically more than 100 houses looking for something. And as soon as we found this particular house and we walked in, and we knew that this felt home for the first time. And a big part of it was actually the historic character, because we love old houses. And this has been our house for the last 20 years. And as we're working, we have a teenage son, we have aging parents, we're looking for a way to upgrade this house a little bit, modest expansion addition. But what was always important to us from the beginning is to preserve and build upon the historic character of our house and to fit in with our neighbors and our neighborhood. And with Martin's help, I mean, we picked Martin because of his historic architecture history and whatnot. We came before you, we got good comments from you, we got good comments from staff and from Page and Turnbull, and we have moved our project to where it is today as you see it, and we think that it's a better project for all of that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the property constraints, since that was a question that came up. The threshold for, the area threshold for substandard is 4980. We're actually 83 square feet short of that. However, Christy, could you put the site plan up? Yes, okay. So you see that the left property line has a 75-foot segment. It jogs left 5 feet and then continues. That 75-foot segment, there's actually an easement, a perpetual exclusive use easement in our favor for that 75 feet, and it's 1.5 feet wide. The area of that is 112 square feet. So, and that is a continuous part of our property. If you look at our driveway, it's part of our driveway, and then the planting next to it that goes up to the fence that was in the picture there. So in terms of like zoning, which is the placement of volume and mass on a certain amount of property, we actually have the land that fits a conforming lot. But it's in two pieces. It's the land we own, and it's the 112 square feet of the easement, perpetual exclusive use easement. So we actually, in reality, have a standard lot. And it's part of the things that are contributing to our reasons for applying for a variance. And then the tree protection zone, yes, it occupies the bulk of our backyard. Staff, or the general guidelines is that they allow like a 25% intrusion into tree protection zones, but because of our garage, our neighbor's cottage, our back neighbor's 2 garages, and trenching that actually happened by our neighbors, our tree protection zone is impacted 73%. And with all of that, it occupies the bulk of the yard, and it's already so impacted that additional intrusion is not supported by the forestry department here. And so what we have then is a narrow, very constrained lot, very constrained building area, and our only option is to go up. And in going up, we tried very hard to stay in character, to expand on the historic character of our house, and also to respect our neighbors, the privacy on all sides. We completely fit within the daylight plane. The addition does not even have the eaves protruding through the daylight plane. So we've tried to protect our neighbors' light. We've worked with our neighbors. 836 Kipling, whose house is physically 5.5 feet away from our house, we got them involved very early and all through our project, and they fully support the plans that we have here. So if there are any questions on any particular points, I'd be happy to further expand on it.
So thank you for describing the easement. Do you know what date that easement was?
It was in 2001. It was Summerhill Homes
Right, sure.
had to come to some kind of legal solution when they surveyed the land for the lot. That's when both they and we discovered that the fence was not the property line, and that we were actually encroaching on that lot. And so they could not sell that house until this encroachment was resolved. And so we came to an agreement that we purchased the use of that land. So we own the use of the land.
So the purpose of the easement probably was to provide you with a legal driveway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, it is a narrow driveway. If that 1.5
Right.
feet gets removed, we do not have a functional driveway.
Right. And this house has been on that property for how many years?
107.
Right. So, as is not uncommon, that's a backwards way let me rephrase this. As is common on properties of that age, the actual property lines may not be, the buildings may not respect setbacks that we have today because 100 and some odd years ago it was pretty loose. In fact, there wasn't even a requirement to have a building permit till 1956, I think, somewhere in there. So the fact that you have a driveway, now you have this easement, as you point out, that would make your property not substandard, it would make it a standard conforming lot, is, I think, significant, and thank you for sharing that. Okay, sure. Other questions? No other questions, so maybe we'll bring this back to the board. I wanted to make one comment, Martin, while we're still in the question phase. I see on the plans, or as I read our earlier study session of this project, there was a discussion about what the siding would be like. I see now that it's all going to be new 1x4 siding. Is that going to match what's on there now with that so-called three-lap?
Yes, that's correct, yes. Good.
Okay, great, because the issue when we first saw this was how the new portions would be differentiated from the old.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, and then that information is also then was relayed then to Page and Turnbull, and then they supported that decision too.
Yeah, that's fine.
So as you debate and discuss the project, yeah, if you come to any motions, if you could then include our request for the changing, the swapping of the doors, and then the windows on the east side. Okay, thank you.
That's my next question. So on the handout that we had, from you, on this elevation, this says November 19th, 2020.
Correct.
Okay, so that's actually changed. What we have in our packets is different than what's on the video monitor.
Yeah, you're looking on page 2 of Page and Turnbull's report. I think that's what you were holding up.
I'm looking at, yes, that's
Yeah.
right. And so I see here that there was a single door with a side light, one side light, and
Yes.
that's now been changed to just a single door?
No, Page and Turnbull has approved the one on the right where it has the side light.
I see, so
Yeah,
that...
figure number 4 in Page and Turnbull's letter. That's the one that they're approving.
Okay, so what's up on the video is not the latest. I don't see that side light on that lower left. Is it there?
If I may speak.
Yeah.
So actually, in the February study session, what we had presented to you was the single door on the right and the French doors on the front. We had swapped those already in the plan that you reviewed at that time. And then in working with Page and Turnbull, they asked us to go back to the original. And then after in bringing back the gables, we reset the staircase, and we got into the issues of trying to resolve the windows with the staircase. We also kept coming back to the French doors at the entry. It's just very difficult to work with. So we again asked, can we put the original front door in the location of the current entrance, and can we take the existing French doors and move them into the position where the front door was? So we're preserving the 2 doors, we're just asking to move them. In doing that, in proposing that we take the single door and moving it into the location of the French doors, we were trying to retain the frame size of the original French doors so that we still, kept our connection to the original construction. And so we proposed 2 ways to do that. One was the single front door with a side light that matched the divided light structure and filled in the original outline of the French doors, or the single front door and a panel. So that was in our handout. And they agreed that these could be swapped, and they preferred the single door with the side light that matched the divided light. So that was...
What was their preference there?
I think they're...
I mean, since what you were asking to do is just take the doors and the same doors and relocate them, why wasn't that acceptable? Since that's the least intrusive architectural change and uses the original materials, presumably.
I can't answer to that. I can speculate.
Fine, just...
My speculation is that the divided light glass in the end result was similar to the original French door divided light volume or area. So that's my speculation.
So to your questions, Page and Turnbull did review the proposal and recommend to have the single French door with a side light because it will retain the original frame for the double entry door that was there before. And it will also not shows or demonstrate some thought sense of history because there will be a new siding to it, filling it up with the existing material. So that's their recommendation.
So, Roger, where is that?
Actually, I said panel. It wasn't meant to be panel. It was, we would fill in that space, but we would use historic siding that's being removed from the back of the house. We would move it to the front of the house, preserve materials, and fill in the space between them.
Okay, I see now on the drawing that the single side light and a 3x4 entry door creates 4 horizontal lights, which is what the existing or the original French doors, they were too wide, they were probably 5 high, not 4, but point is that you still have 4 across, even though there's a bar. Okay, just wanted to point that out and clarify it. All right. Debbie, you have...
I just wanted to ask a question. Somehow I thought I remembered reading that what you're describing as original door with as French doors was not actually original. It was just a very early addition or change?
No, well, actually, I've done a lot of forensic analysis of my house. I went through the basement. I went through the attic. I have lots of pictures. Actually, I presented it to the staff and to Page and Turnbull. Our house was built in 1912, and I can document at least 2 stages of expansion that were complete before the 1924 Sanborn maps. So in 1924, Sanborn shows our house in its current configuration. The original door actually is between the dining room and the living room. The living room did not exist at that point, and the bedroom to the left did not exist in the original house. And then the first construction expansion was to add the left-hand bedroom, but the entrance was still where the dining room, living room interface is on the right. And I can see the staircase in the basement, the former staircase. And then when the second phase of construction, or the second phase that I can determine, is when they added the living room and they added the porch and they added the awning at that point. And it was at that point that the French doors got added. So the front door from the living room onto the porch and the French doors from the front bedroom onto the porch were added at the same time as a part of the same modification of the house.
That's very helpful. So, I'm sorry, what did you say was the year of the house originally?
According to County of Santa Clara, the construction date for the house is 1912.
Okay, so I think, I could be wrong about this, I'm not an architectural historian, but I think that French doors or a door with a side light are 1924, but they're not, I mean, they wouldn't have been in an original house. It would have been one door. And just personally, for that reason, I prefer the suggestion that you had, that you infill the siding and have just the door. But I guess I defer to Page and Turnbull. I'm surprised, frankly, that they made that choice.
Well, we offered them both, and we're open to both.
Okay. Other comments? Roger, anything? All right. Margaret? Well, wait, any questions? I'm sorry. All right. So, seeing no questions, thank you very much for clarifying those items. Let's bring it back to the board and discuss how to craft a motion, whether we want to support this or not. So, Brandon, you want to start comments? Or not?
Let's let
Margaret?
go.
No, I just have some observations and some comments. So regarding the 2 issues that, kind of the questions that they want us to respond to, first of all, the front door, I'm more in support of keeping the existing opening and filling it in with a side light and a door, because if you're trying to amend an existing siding by taking historic siding off the back, you're going to have a seam where you're filling it in. So then they're going to take off all of the existing siding on the left and probably either stagger it or something, because you don't want this very obvious seam. All that existing siding was probably painted with lead paint. So it just opens up another can of worms. So personally, I think keep the opening, keep it simple, keep the opening as the existing width, and fill it in with the door and the side light. That makes perfect sense to me. The door on the side, that's fine. I think the double door actually looks nice. It'll bring more light into the room. What I have more of an issue with is the window on the side at the stair. So I understand keeping the cross gable. I don't understand why Page and Turnbull would even recommend putting a window under a stair. That historically, that would never happen. So I know that you're trying to achieve a historic look on the side. Yes, there were windows there. Okay, let's keep that spirit that there were windows there, but to drop a window and hide it in a stair, under a stair makes absolutely no sense to me. It looks awkward to me. It doesn't look historic to me, and historically, you would never put a window under a stair. I mean, so anyway, I'm arguing that, obviously. I like the charming little existing window. Why wouldn't you put that in the bathroom? Because right now, your bathroom that's next to the stair has no window. So, I mean, you have to accommodate and think about how you're going to actually use this house today. It makes sense that you would put the small cute window in the bathroom, because by code you need 8% light and 4% ventilation of every livable space. How are you going to achieve that by not putting a window in there? So you kind of begs the question, let's put the cute little window in the bathroom. And putting a window under, I mean, I'll argue that historic, or, I mean, that's not a historic use of a window. I mean, I know you're trying to get the facade right, but it's like the tail is wagging the dog here. Let's just be honest. That just doesn't make sense to me, and it looks awkward when you drop it in order to allow it to even exist there. So I am not in support of what Page and Turnbull is suggesting on the side. I think Martin is a brilliant architect. He should be able to incorporate a small window that is of the essence of what was there and put it in. I think the bathroom is a logical place to put it. And let's just have confidence in the professional that's handling this project. So the front, I've given you my opinions, but the side, I don't support that at all. So.
Thanks. Thank you, Margaret. Brendan?
Sorry?
Any comments? Discussion?
I mean, most of my views are in line with Margaret. We talked about this in February. I mean, for the new issues, I also agree that, I mean, I think the side window is fine for the front door. It seems to make sense to me. It doesn't look out of place, and you're going to have, you know, you could hide seams, but again, you know, as Margaret indicated, you're going to have, you know, paint issues there. I'm also, it's again not clear to me why there's a window here, and that window underneath the staircase just seems really out of place. I don't understand it. But I think otherwise, I think, you know, all the concerns that we discussed in February were addressed, and I think you did a great job here. So I'm generally in support of these changes, minus this window.
Start at the other end, Debbie.
I think Margaret's idea is an excellent one. I live in a 1904 house, and I have a number of these small windows, and they're in bathrooms or in circulation areas, and they are never low. They don't line up with the larger fenestration pattern. They float, and you know, no one notices them one way or the other.
Thank you, Debbie. Roger, any comments? No, there it is.
That's on, okay. Been a while since we've used these machines. Anyway. I generally agree with just a few comments that have already been made, and I was going to say something, I'm trying to remember. Anyway, I like the proposal made by our two agents right here, so just pass on that.
Okay. I guess I too have the same feeling about that window, the small window. I actually thought, I thought it was awkward, but I thought maybe the purpose of that window was to get light into the laundry room, that somehow, because the stairs, that second flight of stairs is high, you might be able to get something in there. And as I'm looking at the floor plan, it looks like on the second floor that the upper window, which is a smaller window, is actually in that stair, that third flight as you go up. And I hadn't noticed that there's no bathroom window. So I would feel more comfortable, you know, again, if that small window were put in the bathroom, although I do see that's over the bathtub or in the shower, whatever that's going to be, and that will be somewhat problematic. And I can understand how you wouldn't want to have a window in a shower or even a bath. So that said, I think we're, and also I'm comfortable with the single side light in the door at the front. I think that makes sense, consistent with the style of the house, easily, and it's differentiated. So I think that that you know is a win-win on both of those issues, which are important. Debbie.
If it is a problem, if it has to be in the shower, and I know there are issues with that, should they consider eliminating that window entirely?
Well, I think our consensus, the five of us who are discussing this, is that the window underneath the stair is awkward because it's below the head height of the windows on either side. And so the solution is not to have it down there. And how, I'm confident that Martin can solve this. Or just, either get it up, maybe, let me say this a different way. That if the window, the header height of the window was consistent with the other windows, then that's really what bothers me, and I think the rest of the board. So if you can solve that problem, then I think the window's okay, but it's the fact that it's down and small.
Yes, that's correct. So to conform with Page and Turnbull's requirement for keeping the gable, and then that meant the stairs had to do a certain thing. So that's why that existing window would have been interfering with that. Board Member Wimmer's suggestion about the getting natural light into the bathroom, yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it just improves the quality, and we can handle all the waterproof issues and stuff like that. Yeah, again, it was the advice from Page and Turnbull was that keep that window underneath that, keep that location there. But I agree with you that now let's make sure the dog is wagging the tail. So good, yeah.
All right. So do we agree with, are we comfortable as a board having that window move up at the same header height and move over into the bathroom? The location of the window is not as big an issue for me.
To me, I think if the header height matches and it slides over in bathroom or some other place, I'd be supportive of that. And I think I'm not supportive of where that is today. And if it means moving the window to the bathroom at the same header height, or if it means removing the window entirely, either one of those are I'm okay with either one of those.
All right, I'm looking at the existing elevation on page A5, and I don't see a reason to keep that window under the stairs. I mean, the elevation is totally changing, so. The new elevation, I think, is actually a good solution, keeping the gable, just move it. Okay.
And I think maybe to simplify it, because we don't want to just leave sort of a big gray area in terms of, because we're supposed to craft a motion, right? Mm-hmm. So if you do look on the elevation on page A5, the existing east elevation, which is that side of the house, so there is an existing, the little window, right? We see that, it's clear, it's documented. So if I were to start thinking of how we could craft a motion, I would say, let's allow a small window to be placed in the zone of the bathroom of that size. Because the size that's shown, the size under the stair, that window's kind of a little bit big to put in a shower. Maybe we just say, this is a great size. Yeah, it's a little low, but I mean, maybe they can put frosted glass or make it out of a material that's not water sensitive, whatever. We'll let them deal with that. But I think, say, a window of this dimension in the zone of that bathroom and eliminate the large window under the stair, I think that's specific enough.
Okay.
Probably also
move forward.
The header height.
Yeah, well, this has a consistent header height with the other, so yeah. Yeah, you'd want the shower window up high, not low. for obvious reasons.
So let's craft a motion and we can move on. We have an important field trip today. Who would like to take a crack at the motion? So let me just say that I think the two things we want to make sure the motion addresses. First one is this window, and it's apparently the header height and maybe location. And the second issue is the front door side light being acceptable to the board and in compliance with the Secretary of Interior standards. And then the overall project approval as being compliant. Those are the three things that I think we're being asked to address. Margaret,
Do you want me to give it a shot?
Sure.
Okay. I move to accept the double French door entry to the living room as proposed. Secondly, item number 2 on the motion would be to, at the front door, to allow the applicant to fill in the existing opening with an operable door and a smaller, narrower side light as illustrated in one of the 2 options. And lastly, I move to eliminate the need of having an awkward window under the stair and instead allow the applicant to replicate an existing small east-facing window, and we can reference this on sheet A5, replicate this small existing window and locate it in the zone of the proposed new bathroom on the first floor. So it has kind of 3 bullet points in the motion.
Okay, and then does one of those bullet points address the Secretary of Interior standards that this project we now feel is acceptable?
Yes, and we feel that this project is acceptable to the Secretary of the Interior standards.
So if I could paraphrase what you're saying, it is the last, so there are 3 items, specific details that we are asking be modified, and the 4th item would be that if those 3 items are modified, that we then feel that the project is compliant with the Secretary of Interior standards. Is that fair paraphrase? Good.
Yes.
Okay. All right, discussion. Any discussion? Probably not, because we've been discussing it all morning. I apologize for making this so long, but there are lots of little issues here that I felt we needed to address. So if there is no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Margaret, oh wait.
I'll
Sorry,
second.
we need a second.
I'll second.
All right, Corey seconds it. Now, we have a motion and a second and no discussion. So all in favor of supporting this project as Margaret has articulated it, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so it's unanimous. Thank you for all of your efforts. Difficult project, difficult site. Look forward to seeing the completed project.
Thank you very much.
Good. All right, so we now are in a study session. It's an informal report from Amy, I think, about the processes for nominations to city's historic resources inventory category updates, and implementation of the Palo Alto Comprehensive Plan for Policies of Historic Preservation. Martin is rejoining us since he now no longer has a conflict.
Thank you, Chair.
Amy.
Yes, thank you. And thanks to Christy Fong as well. She had helped me with a tracking document that is in your packet that shows the extensive number of historic resource evaluations that we have been preparing since the adoption of the Comprehensive Plan Policy 7.2. I'll get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to acknowledge her work on that. So we've heard from some members of the public interest in what's the nomination process? What's the process to upgrade from one category to another? On our historic resources inventory. So I just took the opportunity to prepare an informational report. There's no action requested today, just an opportunity to make sure that it's known to members of the public, as well as an opportunity for the HRB to ask questions or make comments on the process that we have for this. We have some real live examples that are coming through the pipeline, one of them being the 526 Waverly, which the HRB had recommended to upgrade to a Category 2. So they have completed their work there and are going to be coming back to get it actually designated as a Category 2 by council in the near future. So that's just one example. So on the screen, I've put the kind of, we've talked about this, that what we have been doing to implement policy 7.2 is to see those properties that are shown as potentially eligible that came through the Dames and Moore process study lists that didn't go beyond that to, a final conclusion. When we have projects coming through, individual review, two-story homes, what have you, second-story additions, that we have our consultant take a look, prepare an evaluation, and make that determination whether it's California Register eligible or not. But just a note that the public may not understand, so just we'll say it, is that being California Register eligible does not equate to placement on the city's inventory as a Category 1 through 4, which is referenced in the Palo Alto's Municipal Code, Chapter 1649. So just a bit about nominations and upgrades. Here's the language directly from the code. So any person, any individual or group can request to place a historic structure or site on the city's inventory. That's a local inventory that we have. The HRB would be, of course, involved in that process to review the proposal. There are documents that would be submitted by the person who's interested in having the property nominated that would give evidence of some sort, ideally a historic resource evaluation prepared by a qualified professional, so that the HRB could then make a recommendation on that. The code does set forth what's needed for such a nomination application. And this is consistent. I've been seeing.
Sorry to interrupt. What is GIST? G-I-S-T?
GIST. Okay, so
GIST.
the next.
Just because I don't see that reported here, and somebody.
Yeah. It's Geographical Information System T. I don't know what the T stands for, sorry.
So this is a city database?
It's a city application, basically, that is where we put all of our information that we have on properties. It's a very, complicated thing to describe, but.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah, but it's where we have information that leads to these parcel reports that are very helpful to the public to find out if a property is potentially eligible, because those are noted on there, or if it's been determined to be eligible for California Register, or if it's a Category 1, 2, 3, or 4 on our inventory.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's all right. So the next, I was just going to say on the last item, you can see that other communities in California do allow just anyone to nominate a property. It doesn't have to be the property owner to nominate to, the city's inventory. For California Register, it's a bit different, but for a city inventory, it's just based on their each city's municipal code. So the next piece here is just that once the process that we've been doing since January of 2018 is once we have received a report, a historic resource evaluation from our consultant that says the property is eligible for California Register, we talk with the property owner who has commissioned this report through the city and let them know, and then we proceed with whatever's next, if they wanted to submit an application or they already had. We work with them. And then we eventually change that on our GIST system so that the public can see that now we have a California Register eligible property. Same goes for if we have learned through this process that the property is not eligible for California Register, we put that on our GIST system to say that it's been found not eligible for California Register. We haven't been systematically bringing these to the HRB. It's not a requirement to do so. But this is why I'm bringing it to you today, just because it's been 2 years now, basically, of doing these evaluations. So it's maybe of interest to see, So we've determined through this process that there are 4 single-family properties and 5 non-single-family residential properties that have we've determined, through this process, found that they're California Register eligible. Then there's 22 single-family properties and 4 non-single-family residential properties that were found not eligible for the California Register. So again, we're reflecting this on our GIST system for the world to see. I just have more on here. This is in the staff report. If eventually some of these that were determined California Register eligible, if an owner wanted to then also have it put on our inventory, they could come forward. The process is available to do so. And then it would be a conversation with the board as to which of the categories it fits in, 1, 2, 3, or 4. I mean, you would think it would be 1 or 2 if it's eligible for the California Register. One of those 2 categories. I just put this is also in the staff report, the designation procedure. So we can come back to that if anyone has questions. And then, again, more stuff from the code. This is the process. HRB recommends. Council can approve, disapprove, modify, or recommend for designation. This is the designation criteria. So I just put these here not to talk about them so much, but if there's questions about that. And then just one thing that I didn't put in the report was regarding new state law that's been adopted. It doesn't go into effect until January of 2021, but there is a new tax credit in California that's going to go into effect. We already have a federal tax credit for rehabilitation, but we now have a year from now, basically January 2021, the ability for homeowners to also seek the California tax credit. So I wasn't sure if the board had seen, this is the features of this, SB 451. There's the 20% tax credit, 5% bonus for certain projects, et cetera.
Can I ask a quick question on that? So, I mean, that's why people wanted to participate in the Mills Act, right? To get a reduction of their property tax, but this is...
This is state income tax. So you could get both, theoretically.
What? Wow.
Well, so you don't need to have a Mills Act property to participate in a California. If you have a designated, I guess, California Register eligible or California resource, on the list, actually.
You get a 20% discount on your income taxes? Not your property taxes?
Tax credit.
You don't get a discount, it's any work you do to preserve.
So basically it reduces your income by 20%.
It reduces
taxable income.
Your tax cost. That's, if it's a
Wow.
tax credit, that offsets your tax. If it's a deduction, that offsets your income. And so
So if
that's
you-
a very powerful,
Wow.
So if you spent
Incentive.
$10,000, you would get a $2,000 credit on your income tax.
is that right, Amy?
So I'm not versed on this, actually. I just saw this flying through an email on Friday.
That's my understanding of the tax
But the
credit,
California Preservation Foundation was, I know, lobbying for this,
Right.
and they were very excited about getting it and sent out an email about it. So you can have a look.
So do you how do you think that will impact us in terms of people wanting to scramble and get on the inventory? It sounds like it's likely.
Yeah. it's
I
an-
We've been
would-
wanting that for a while, right? I
It's
mean,
more likely now, I would say, because, we've had kind of thwarted, some people have come forward and said, oh, can I be on the Mills, can I get a Mills Act contract? It's been a little bit challenging without,
to say
We
the
don't have the
least.
program.
we don't have a
Right.
program.
Wow, interesting, huh?
Yeah, so I think that could have an effect.
So I'd like to point out on the screen here that there is a maximum of $50 million credit. That's probably statewide. And there is a $10 million set aside, it says, for residential and smaller projects. And down at the very bottom, this program starts in January of 2021 and sunsets 5 years later. So this is going to be a limited, it's limited by the total dollar offset and also by the duration. It can't, it presumably will be revisited near the end of its sunset date. Okay. That's it. I'd like to,
Well, I'm sorry, could I just ask for
sure, Debbie, go ahead.
further clarification? Can you tell us a little bit about the type of work? Is it only on the exterior, since that's what's protected? Can it be interior work? Does it have to be, another historic bathroom or an upgrade?
I just threw this up there, throwing caution to the wind about, my ignorance, just to get it in front of you so you're aware of it, and then can start asking such questions. And then perhaps we can have, our consultant maybe is boning up on this as well and can come and give a presentation about this in the new year.
I think that would, also because it doesn't start for another year, they'll probably fleshing out the requirements to apply, and so I'm sure we'll hear more about this. I just wanted to note that 340 Portage Avenue is listed on your list, and there's no update in, it says here.
Because that reflects that we haven't changed the gist
But
quite yet.
Presumably, our
Yeah, so-
hearing would cause that to be updated?
So we don't have right now an application on file. So if there is an application filed or, and there's been some other developments on the NVCAP front as far as funding, et cetera, of
Right.
studies. So I guess stay tuned. We haven't done anything with just yet, but yes,
But all
HRB
of-
should be,
Yeah, the HRE was done.
Yeah.
and- Good, okay, so the process is that until a project is submitted, that information that we've already gathered is there, but just not in the system.
well, one of the things that, could happen aside from a project coming forward is somebody could decide to, nominate that property to the city's inventory. So if that happened, then you would see it. I'm saying that would be another way that the HRB would have involvement with that if that happened, even without a project. So far, that's not happened. But
Okay, thank you very much for that information. Martin?
One question for Amy. On the process for nominating a property, it says by individual or group. What if the individual or the group is not a property owner of the property that's being, does the owner have to agree to being put on a California register?
yes, the owner has to agree to put on the California Register. The owner does not have to agree to being brought forward for nomination to the city's local inventory. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
Okay.
so does that mean if someone wants to put it, nominate a property to be on the local register, the property owner still needs to approve that?
Yes, it's my understanding that the property owner needs to be involved with the California Register, getting on the register actually.
Anyone can nominate, but the homeowner has to be involved in the
Great, thank you.
Oh, but just for further clarification, but for the Palo Alto inventory, for example, if you're concerned that a property in your immediate neighborhood is going to be significantly altered, you can nominate it for the local inventory without the permission of the owner.
Yes, I'm going to read the statement from the code directly. Any individual or group may propose designation as a historic structure or district. Such proposal shall be reviewed by the HRB, which makes its recommendation to council. Designation must be approved by the city council. It doesn't say designation must be approved by the property owner.
So that's a great question.
Yeah.
So it sounds like then, if the owner doesn't want it, but it can still be put on the local register.
You can try to put it on the local register, whether the council would then put a building on the local register with, over the objection of a homeowner is, in my opinion, probably unlikely.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
For a variety of reasons. Anyway, let's move on to our last action item, and that's the approval of minutes from September 12th. I have one very small change in the minutes. It's on packet page 90. Right in the middle, I said it is really important to always tell Vin, our new aide. I think that that's not an appropriate title for Vin. And so whatever his title is, which would be HRB.
Board support staff. He supports all of the planning boards, planning commission.
He's not an aide. I'm sure I used that term, but as I reread this, I felt that diminished his stature. So if you could put the appropriate title in there for him, that's the only change I have, I would request. And if that is acceptable to the rest of the board, I would hope to hear a motion to approve.
I'd approve
September
that.
12th. HRB draft minutes, September 12, 2019. It's under the fourth tab on our,
I'll move to approve the minutes
is there a second?
with your
With change?
changes, suggested changes.
Second?
I second it.
Any discussion, further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? No. All right. We
have
are
a
at
Comment.
subcommittee items. There are no subcommittee items. Board member questions, comments. Roger?
I just wanted to let you know I was going through a lot of things and I discovered these panels and I had them enlarged. And it's kind of a neat collection of varying, what's going on in Palo Alto. So they look pretty neat up inside, so I brought them in today.
Lots of pictures of Palo Alto then, not now.
Yeah, that's true.
Harker Day School was there. That was demolished and infilled in the late 60s, maybe, with Eichler's, our most, the largest number of, how do you describe that? The architectural style most represented in Palo Alto. All right, no further comments. We can look at this for a minute, and then we're going to go on to our field trip to the Junior Museum.
So in the agenda, we said, we're going to meet at 10:45. I believe that's what I had posted in here. So yeah, I did rent a van, but we do have our holiday party also at the Lucy Stern. So I wouldn't be driving that van back for a while if I did drive it. Does everyone have a ride to the Lucy Stern? Is everyone going to this field trip, or you cannot go? Okay.
I cannot go either.
Ah, okay. Okay, so then the question, though, is because I'm planning to stay at my holiday party, you'll walk back, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get you back, Martin. Roger and I'll go.
Casey's willing to.
The last time I rented the van for this group, we went up to San Francisco. I don't know if it was other folks, but for one of these award ceremonies. So that was a fun memory. But so I rented it again just in case. I'll probably turn it over to the staff in the planning department to use
So
today.
where should we meet?
So we're going to meet at, and I think we can, gather. I told John Aiken it would be around 10:45. If you want to gather before that, in the lobby of the Lucy Stern Center, it's the service desk.
Sure.
So then we can walk over from there. Because we're not taking any action, this is not a project that's an active project, it's an active construction project, but not, any decisions to be made by the HRB. I think it's okay if we gather a bit early. Again,
Sure.
as long as we're not talking about projects that are currently active or,
Okay.
we're fine.
All right.
And I do have some extra hard hats. I think they have enough for 7, but if anyone wanted to bring a friend or anybody else, I don't know. It's they may have
Well,
that
so
capacity.
on that note, I'd like to thank you, Amy, and all the staff that helps us be successful. We've had I think, a pretty good year here. And thank you, board members, for all the work you do. I know this is your primary job, so I appreciate your doing it, and we'll have a pay increase next year.
What you will have is an email from me soon about what have your activities been, because every year, as you know, I have to prepare a
right.
CLG report. So think
Yeah.
back on
Okay.
anything you might have attended. That the CPF conference from May of 2018 is kind of in our rear view now. So
Right,
yeah, there's online opportunities and this kind of things,
Right.
and webinars. If you so choose to delve into more training, let me know.
All right, well, happy holidays, everyone, and for that, we'll adjourn the meeting and go over to the Junior Museum. Great, thank you.